Hello and welcome to The Lurking Fear, part of the bigger show, Ghost Life Whatever. The podcast where we could talk about ghosts, could talk about life, whatever. I'm Corey Wilson, and today we'll hear from my friend RJ. So let's get to it.
So growing up, I had a cat named Tito. I didn't know the breed of cat. It escapes me at this time. I couldn't really tell you other than he was white, black, and gray, and he had black stripes on a gray back and a white tummy. Really cool looking cat. Anyways, his name was Tito, and I had him basically growing up to about, I want to say, 11 years old, 12 years old. So he was a fairly old cat. Anyways, yeah, it was probably middle of third grade, so which makes about 12 years. Middle of third grade, and I remember having to put him down, and I was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken, because he was the coolest cat ever. Um, but after he had passed, my family, not just me, my family started noticing a couple things around the house. Um, we would walk through the hallway, so all of our bedrooms are connected in a hallway, and there's also a bathroom on the hallway, and the lights are usually off. No one's in the rooms. Lights are going to be off. So we'd walk and we'd pass by a room that's door open, lights are off, and we'd see a silhouette of a cat run into that room. And it wouldn't just be like, oh, I must be seeing things. It was, you saw a legitimate silhouette of a cat run into that room. A cat with a tail, much like my cat Tito had. And it's probably started, I want to say, 3-4 months after he had passed. And it was weird because we'd walk through the house and you'd walk through the hallway and you'd see a cat run into a room, and you'd poke your head in, look around, you're like, okay, and you'd go to Ayrton, my brother, or my mom, and be like, hey, I think I just saw the cat, or I saw a cat. And be like, what? No, that's weird. And then shortly after, one of them would say it. My mom saw it, and then Ayrton saw it, and these were all separate incidents. It'd be sporadic. It wouldn't be a consistent 3 o'clock on a Sunday kind of thing. It would be, 10 o'clock going to the bathroom at night, and then you'd see a cat run in the room. It would be Monday morning, you'd see a cat run in the room. It was anywhere from broad daylight to middle of the night, and it was creepy at first. Like, it spooked me a little bit at first, but then it was kind of reassuring because that cat, he was comfort. A lot of hard times, and that cat was always there. He was always by my side, which kind of segues into another experience I had with my cat, which is really weird because when my brother and I used to share rooms growing up, and then we finally got our own separate rooms, and I slept in what was the office at one point. Well, when I was in that office, Tito would always come to my door frame, and he'd sit there and he'd look at me and he'd be purring, and I'd have to say, okay, you can come in, and he'd let himself in. He would basically sit there and ask for permission to come into my room. And I am the kind of person that sleeps on my stomach, so my legs are usually splayed. And he would come up, walk onto my bed, and then he'd lay down between my legs every single time, without fail. After he had passed, I would sit there falling asleep. I would feel pressure on points of my bed, and then the entire area between my legs would depress, like something was laying down. And I figured, oh, it's just a blanket settling. Well, there's no reason for the blanket to settle like that, particularly in a very specific point, kind of like how Tito would walk. And for the longest time, I blew it off. I was like, that's nothing. That's no big deal. Until, God, it was probably a couple of years ago. I was thinking about it because I was telling someone about how Tito would sit there at my doorway. And then it just kind of clicked that he was still coming onto my bed. And it was comforting. At first, it was like being a kid growing up. You're like, oh my God, that's terrifying. It's why is this happening? I didn't think of it. It was never negative. And honestly, I probably felt more at peace or more comfortable when I had that experience, when he would come on the bed and he'd lay down on the bed and with me. And I remember, so not only has my immediate family seen him, but me and my cousin has seen him. My cousin's never lived with us. He'd come spend the night every now and then, but he lived with my grandparents. Well, the PS2 had just dropped, and we had ATV Off-Road Fury. Best game ever. We'd sit there hours on end playing this. And I remember we had just gotten the PS2. It was probably a little bit after Christmas. and we're playing it. God, we played up until the wee hours of the morning, and we're sitting here playing it, and for whatever reason, we paused the game. I remember pausing the game, and we looked over to our right. So when you walked in my front living room from the main door, right hand side there's a portal into the kitchen. Left hand side is a hallway that leads to the bedrooms and the bathroom. Well, right at the portal of the kitchen is the fridge. So we paused the game, and we both looked to the right, and standing right next to the fridge, probably 8 feet away, so not very far, 8 feet away, is this clear figure of my cat Tito sitting down, looking right at us, like looking dead on at us. And it wasn't just like kind of you thought you saw something; it was a full-on clear image of him, clear as day. And it was so weird because it was opaque. It wasn't you could see the table behind him, or you could see the door behind him. It was opaque and clear. And I was like, I blinked, looked at it, and it's still there. And I looked at my cousin Ryan to my left, who's on the couch. I was like, Ryan, do you see that? And he goes, yeah. And I look back, and Tito's gone. I look back at Ryan, and he looks at me, and we both just kind of have this look like, did we really just fucking see that? Like, is this really going on? So I said, maybe it's time we turn off the PS2. And he goes, I think so too. So we turned off the PS2 and went to sleep. And then, it's been 24 now, so 12 years. I could probably ask him. I could probably call him up and ask him if he remembers seeing Tito with me. And he'll probably say yeah. So, not only have I experienced my cat, but so has my mom on separate occasions, and so has my brother on separate occasions, along with my cousin. And actually, what was kind of funny was not too long ago, I saw his silhouette, Tito's silhouette, run into my mom's room. I was coming from my room, and my mom's room is on my left, and I see a silhouette of a cat run in. Well, the thing is I just let Mono, my most current cat, I should say, I had just let him out. So there was no cat in the house. And I was going from my room to the bathroom, and I see a cat run into my mom's room. And I was like, huh. It's been a while. I was kind of happy. It's like it's been a while since I had seen Tito. It was kind of calming. It was kind of nice because it had been years. It was really frequent after he had just passed away, and then it kind of petered off, and then we just hadn't seen him for years. And out of nowhere, he pops back up. Well, I just recently had to put my cat Mono down. That was last Monday. It had been a pretty tough week. And, my mom and I would kind of talk about it, kind of help cope and deal with the loss, basically. And she said, honestly, I had been seeing Tito these past few days before he put Mono down. And I was just like, he probably came to take his little brother home. And it was comforting because we knew that when we saw Tito, we were doing good. The family had always been in good health. I guess would be the best way to say it when we saw Tito. It was never a bad time. We weren't in dire straits. We weren't angry. We weren't fighting. It was always when the family was, our hearts were full. And I guess that's how it was when it came time to put down my cat Mono. It was the welling of emotion, and I think maybe that probably brought Tito back. He knew he was here to comfort us, kind of thing. And I'm you have to forgive me because I'm choking up a little bit because it's pretty recent, and I had Mono since basically after Tito passed. We've had him for 12, 13 years too. So both cats lived a long time with us, and growing up with a cat, it's a family member. It's no different than a brother. Mono is actually short for hermano, which is brother in Spanish. So, the days leading up to to putting down Mono, I should say, my mom had been seeing Tito. And when I saw Tito not too long ago, probably a couple months ago, I didn't say anything about it. And my mom actually saw him herself about a week after that, and she told me. And I never told her about it. I just kind of kept it to myself, no big deal. And then out of nowhere, she said she saw him. So it's kind of cool because it's not just an isolated experience. It's usually when one person sees him, another person sees him. We're kind of holding our breath right now to see if we experience Mono. I don't know if it was my head playing tricks on me or not, but the other night I came home pretty late, and when I would come home late, he would always run up from the side of my driveway, do this big loop, because he never ran straight to the door. He'd do this weird loop, cats in their ways. He did this loop. He'd jump into the planter box, run up the planter box, and sit kind of at the corner of the planter box right next to the door. I'd open the door, and he'd run in. Well, I remember closing the door to my truck and starting to walk up, and I thought I could see him doing that. And it was probably just memories of days gone by, but it was always the habitual things they'd do. Like Tito, he'd always sit at my door. I'd have to let him in my house or my room. I'd say, okay, you can come in. He'd come sleep with me. Or Mono, he'd always do his weird loop thing that he'd do and go up to the door. So we're kind of waiting to see if we notice anything about Mono. He'd always. I kind of want to see if he'll make a noise, because for the last 5-6 years he trained us. We didn't train him. 5:00 on the dot. He'd start meowing. Hey, let me out! I gotta go to the bathroom. Let me out, because he was an outside cat. So I'm almost expecting to hear him meow, or hear a meow at 5:00 in the morning, or hear scratching at the door when he's ready to come in at like 6 in the morning. So it's we're sitting here with bated breath, seeing if he'll make an appearance. I'm kind of hoping he will. I miss him. One of the last mementos we have of him, actually, right before my brother took him to the vet to put Mono down, Mono used his litter box one last time, and so he left a ripe old dookie in the litter box. Well, my mom and I kind of been noticing, because we haven't moved the litter box. I guess it's still kind of like the last thing we have of him on this earth, this last like mortal thing we have of him, which is kind of gross, yeah. But that, and I think we're also partially lazy. But we've noticed that at times the sand itself shifts. Like someone's been using the litter box. The sand has been shifts because like it started covering more, covering less, covering more, covering less. And yeah, granted, it's possible we could have kicked it or moved it, but it's not kicked in a way that it would shift. Like kick it, you probably spill a bunch everywhere, or like knock kitty litter out. No, it legitimately looks like someone's been using it, or just at least moving the sand around. My personal experiences dealing with ghosts, or I should say paranormal activity, has been mostly in this household. I have had one experience at my grandmother's house, who used to live, I should say, in Tacoma, right off of Portland Ave. My cousin Ashley and Ryan, the same one that had the experience with me, their mother passed away when they were 5 years old. So that would have made me 2. So their mother passed away a long time ago. And never really met my aunt, other than I know that she was about 5 foot. And, that's about all I have of her, other than seeing pictures of her. I never have any memories. But I remember one day I was staying at my grandmother's house, and I had went upstairs to go get a cot, because I was going to sleep in the addition downstairs. So went upstairs, grabbed the cot, and I had seen Digimon cards. It was back when all these trading card games were coming out, and I had seen Digimon cards that I had bought a long time ago. And I was like, oh, cool. I haven't seen these in forever, so I'm looking through them. And the way the landing at my grandmother's house was set up was you go up a flight of stairs, and there's a landing. So when you turn the stairs, you turn to the right, and there's 3 rooms. On the left is Ashley's, in front of you is Ryan's, and then to the right is the master bedroom, which was my grandparents'. Well, the way the house is set up is there's no real way for light to come in and wash across the walls, because the roads run north-south, and all the windows are facing like east-west kind of ordeal. So that you can't get light pollution coming in from outside. You can't have like a vehicle pass by. There's no way. And I remember I was sitting here looking at these cards, facing basically like you just come up from the stairs. I'm looking through these cards, and movement behind me catches my eye. And I was like, okay, look over, and there's about a 5 foot tall form, is the best way I can say it, opaque form that goes from the wall of the master bedroom to Ashley's wall. And it's arm's reach, if that. Like, you could, if it were a person, you'd feel the air move as they walk by. It was that close. And I see about 5 foot, because I was about 5'4", 5'5" at the time. I was a little kid. I see this object come from behind me and then hit the wall, or pass through the wall in Ashley's room. And dude, I moved down those stairs so fast. I don't think I actually stepped on the stairs. I think my heels just kind of hit the edges, and I was doing this cool like electric slide down it. And it was the most terrifying thing ever. Like it was fear. Like there was an actual emotion with it It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't like, oh, whatever, no big deal. I was like, holy shit, that's something right there. That's an actual thing next to me, moving next to me from room to room. I prefaced it with light wash, or there's no chance of light wash because it's the second story of a building, or a house, I should say, and there's no way you can get a light to move from a room behind me, wash across the walls next to me, and then into the next room from where I was standing. There's no way. And it was, I could tell that this object's moving because all the other rooms were dark. Grandma's room, master bedroom was dark. Ryan's room was dark. Ashley's room was dark. The only light in that landing was the one above me on the actual landing itself. And I see this object move, and it blocks out the door. It's opaque enough that
Do you know what color it was?
Colorless, white, gray. It honestly, when you wake up and you see fog in the morning, it looks just like that. There's no color. There was no real form to it either. It wasn't like, other than being upright, there was no distinguishing features. There was no arms, no face, legs, or anything other than there was a form, a shapeless form moving next to me from wall to wall. And it was within arm's reach, like that close. And the thing is like, I never really felt that there was anything in that house. Because, we've seen the cat, but it's never been like a negative energy, never been anything bad. If anything, it's always felt warm in the house. It's always been full, I should say. With my grandmother's house, we've never really experienced anything out of it. It wasn't the kind of house where it's like, okay, something's here. Like, I think something's here. There was no activity. There's no poltergeist activity. There was no creepy goings-ons, like stuff moving out of place. There was nothing out of the norm, which was so off-putting out the entire thing. Is it wasn't expected. With Tito, once we started seeing him, okay, it's expected to see him. No big deal. But with my grandmother's house, this was right out of the blue. And it caught me off guard because it came from behind me and was so close to me and then went to the wall next to me. It shook my foundation. So my grandfather passed away in 2010, so right out of high school. About middle of high school, right out of high school, my grandfather passed away. And that was a tough time. Tough old bird, piss and vinegar. He was 80 years old when he finally passed, and he had fought cancer 3 times. Well, third time was the charm. Finally kicked the bucket. When he passed, he was actually in hospice care, and then he was piss and vinegar about that. He was all mad about it, and then he wanted to come home, so we put him in. We brought him home, and then they basically gave him a barbiturate cocktail that was keeping him alive by a thread, but it put him into seizures, into convulsions. And no one really thought about it until I was like, oh, hey, no, this is definitely not normal. He's convulsing. This isn't good. So we looked at it, and apparently all those medicines that they gave him would react negatively with each other. Well, that sent him back to the hospital, and they took him off his meds. Well, he went back to normal and was screaming and yelling and cursing at all the nurses, just, the status quo for Grandpa. He was a vulgar son of a bitch, too. So they basically was like, well, we don't want him. And we said, okay, well, we'll take him home. And the night we finally brought him home, he passed. And it was kind of a sigh of relief for us, mostly because his time was due. And it was comforting knowing that he wanted to pass at home. Because he literally held on until he came home. They laid him down in his bed, and then he just kind of took a deep breath and gave up the ghost. And after that, it was a hard time. My grandmother was heartbroken over it. You spend 60 plus years with someone, you're going to grow attached. So she was really heartbroken about it. Cousins were kind of toughing it out. Same cousins whose mother and father passed away when they were young. They lived with my grandparents. They were raised by my grandparents, so they were taking it pretty hard too. Ryan was moved out at the time, and Ashley was living with my grandmother still. And the rooms were on the second floor, like I had previously said. Well, Ashley comes to tell us not too long after he had passed that she had started noticing things. One of them being, one night she was coming down from her room to go to the bathroom. And the bathroom is located on the hallway that is adjacent of the kitchen. And at the end of the hallway, going down it, is the addition. So it's probably about a 20-foot hallway. Halfway through, you've got your bathrooms, or your portal to both bathroom and kitchen. Well, she was walking down the hallway, probably made it quarter of the way through, and the door to the addition closes in front of her. So where my grandparents live, kind of a sketchy neighborhood. There were never ones to leave the windows open, so it's never really breeze in the house. The door itself was tough to close. It was usually there was thick carpet underneath it, so it dragged on the carpet, making it pretty hard to close. You had to put force into it. You couldn't just like push the door and it'd close by itself and latch. Well, she said that the door went from being about half open to fully closed, latched in front of her as she was walking down to the bathroom. Just that was it. That was she was like, yeah, and after that I didn't have to go to the bathroom. Which I don't blame her. The door itself closed in front of her. No reason for it to close. The house is an old house, so the doors are pretty heavy. You had to force it to close because it was on carpet. There's no breezes in the house. The windows are never opened during the night. So that was the first experience. Well, when my grandpa was alive, he would play this trick. So the bathroom itself was huge, actually. It was a pretty large bathroom. And the toilet was kind of sit back against the wall. And when you were in the bathroom, he'd like to goof around with you. So he'd walk by and bang on the door or bang on the wall right next to your head, because it's where the toilet would sit. And she said that she was using the restroom, and right next to her head, bang, just like Grandpa would do. Bang, just like Grandpa would do. She said, you know what? I'm good. I'm done. I'll pass. So she's had her own experiences with Grandpa. I'd say that most of my family members have experienced some sort of paranormal activity. And it was never really a negative one. It's just an experience, just a happening. And it's kind of comforting because a lot of it has been family members. It's never been, knock on wood, it's never been a hostile sort of encounter. And it's kind of nice knowing that they're still here. Some people might not believe it. Some people are vehemently against there being, negative energies or some sort of manifestation of life previously. So it's cool because not only can I say that I've seen something, but people who I know that wouldn't make shit up said they've seen the same thing, and I believe them. We're not one to stretch truths about stuff like that. We're not a religious family by any means. We don't go to church, we don't pray, and we never really were that kind of family. So we don't have prejudices against anything. And I'm not saying that it's bad. It's just we've never had inclination to believe in ghosts or not believe in ghosts. So having something like this happen when we're not, blind to it is kind of cool. It's comforting. It's an interesting experience. It's definitely something to behold. Definitely, I want to say everyone should experience it at least once, because it makes you think a little bit. It's kind of neat. Because, like I said, it's comforting to know that they're still here. You might not see them, and you might not believe in something, but to know that they're still on this plane of existence, or can find a way to interact with you on this plane of existence, is pretty damn cool. It's pretty neat.
Thank you, RJ, for responding to my pleas for spooky stories on Facebook. You can check out my website at www.ghostlifewhatever.com. There isn't much on there right now, but perhaps there will be at some point. Maybe some spooky merchandise, or whatever. If you have a true spooky story you want to share with me, you can contact me through the website. Thanks for listening. I hope you'll listen again.